Welcome to this explainer. If you're a focus learner looking to turn that dream of an epic Australian adventure into reality, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're breaking down the official Department of Home Affairs guidelines to give you a clear, actionable path to securing the first work and holiday visa, specifically Subclass 462. This visa isn't just a piece of paper. It's literally your gateway to living, working, and exploring down under. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll quickly cover the work and holiday dream, compare the different visa types, check if you meet the specific criteria, prove your financial readiness, map out the IMI account process, and finally look at how to avoid common visa mistakes. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Work and Holiday Dream. Unlocking your Australian adventure.
So what you're actually applying for here is a 12-month extended stay in Australia. And what's absolutely fantastic about this is that your 12-month clock doesn't start ticking the day the visa is granted. Nope, it starts from the exact date you first step foot in the country. From that very moment, the entire continent is completely open to you for a full year.
The freedoms you get with Subclass 462 are incredibly versatile. You can travel freely in and out of Australia as many times as you want within that year. You can study for up to 4 months, which is exactly 17 weeks. And crucially, you can take on short-term work to fund your holiday. Now keep in mind, while you can do pretty much any kind of work, you're usually limited to working for the same employer for a maximum of 6 months. Oh, and if you end up absolutely falling in love with the country, completing 3 months of specified work while on this visa actually makes you eligible to apply for a second work and holiday visa. How cool is that?
Section 2. Comparing Australian visa types, navigating visa overlaps safely. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is
how easily things can go wrong if you aren't careful. Please pay close attention to this. You might already be familiar with the Subclass 600 visitor visa for just regular tourist trips, or the Subclass 417 working holiday visa, which is a super similar program but for different passport holders. But with your Subclass 462, overlap is a major issue. Let's say you've been granted your 462 visa. You're thrilled. But then, for some reason, you decide to apply for an e-visitor, Subclass 651, or a transit Subclass 771 visa. Listen to this. If the department grants you that e-visitor or transit visa after your work and holiday visa has been approved, your work and holiday visa immediately ceases. It literally ends right then and there. This completely strips you of your right to work in Australia, and it could even stop you from applying for another one in the future. Bottom line, once you have the 462, you absolutely do not need another visa to enter Australia. Now, there is one very specific exception to this rule, and that involves the Electronic Travel Authority, or ETA, Subclass 601. Unlike those e-visitor or transit visas, an ETA grant will not cancel out your work and holiday visa. Because an ETA basically can't be active at the exact same time as your work and holiday visa, what happens is that the moment you enter Australia, your work and holiday visa kicks in. The ETA just quietly waits in the background and will only come into effect after your work and holiday visa finishes up.
Section 3. Do you meet the criteria? The keys to your application.
First up is the age requirement. You've got to be 18 to 30 years old, inclusive, at the time you apply. But here is where you have to be extremely careful with time zones. You must apply before midnight Australian Eastern Standard Time on the day before your 31st birthday. Remember, Australian time is probably wildly different from the time zone you're sitting in right now. The department's official advice? Just don't submit your application on your birthday if you can avoid it, so you don't accidentally miss that strict cutoff. Next up, you need to hold a valid passport from a specific list of eligible countries. We're talking nations like Argentina, Spain, the US, Indonesia, and a bunch of others. However, if you hold a passport from China, India, or Vietnam, you can't just apply online whenever you feel like it. You're actually required to jump into a pre-application ballot process and be randomly selected before you can even proceed with the actual application.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the department customizes requirements based entirely on your passport country. The education criteria show some pretty sharp differences. For U.S. applicants, holding a high school diploma or its equivalent is totally fine. But for most other nations, like Argentina, Spain, or Indonesia, you've got to have a tertiary qualification like a degree or diploma, or have completed at least 2 years of undergraduate university study. Israel actually has its own unique path, requiring a high school certificate combined with completed military service, or a legal exemption. Always double-check the exact education standard required for your specific passport. Okay, let's move on to our next critical step, your finances. Section 4. Proving your financial readiness. Gathering your resources.
The magic number here is $5,000 Australian dollars. You've got to provide solid evidence, like a formal bank statement, showing that you have access to about this amount to support yourself when you first arrive. And on top of that $5,000, you also have to show proof that you either have a departure ticket to leave Australia at the end of your stay, or at least the extra funds required to buy one.
While we're on the topic of your resources, I really want to stress a super important point about health insurance. It is strongly recommended by the Department of Home Affairs. Why? Because you are personally liable for absolutely all healthcare costs you incur while you're in Australia. Honestly, an unforeseen medical emergency could be completely financially devastating if you don't have adequate coverage. So do yourself a favor, protect your adventure, and get insured.
Section 5. Navigating the IMI account process, your actionable map.
This whole process happens entirely online through the government's IMI account portal. Step 1, gather up all your required documents, identity proofs, education certificates, and that financial evidence we just talked about. And remember, any document not in English has to be professionally translated. Step 2, apply online through your IMI account. Step 3 is absolutely crucial. Pay the $670 Australian dollar application fee. Your application won't even begin processing until that fee clears. And step 4, make sure to jot down your transaction reference number for your own records.
So, the crucial point is this. Once you hit submit, you've got to wait for written approval. Do not, and I repeat, do not book non-refundable flights or arrange travel to Australia before you actually receive that official visa grant letter. Standard processing times usually range from roughly 14 to 30 days, and a large majority of visas are processed within a few weeks if you provide all the correct documents up front. So just sit tight and wait for the green light.
Section 6. Avoiding common visa mistakes. Navigating the perils.
Let's take a closer look at the top reasons these applications fail. We already discussed the time zone trap of hitting submit on your 31st birthday and the absolute necessity of professionally translated documents. But I really need you to listen to this third point: bringing dependent children. This is an absolute non-negotiable rule. While you certainly can apply if you have a child, your dependent child cannot accompany you to Australia at any time while you are on this visa. The department is incredibly strict about this. They explicitly state your child cannot join you, not even for one single day.
And finally, I want to read you this direct quote right from the department. You must declare your current location correctly on your visa application form. We may not be able to grant your visa if your location is incorrect. You absolutely must be outside Australia when you apply for this visa, and you have to remain outside Australia when they actually make the decision to grant it. If you try to sneak into Australia on a tourist visa while waiting for your 462 to process, they literally cannot grant it. You would have to physically leave the country again just for the grant to be issued.
Well, we've covered the rules, the requirements, the costs, and those common traps. The Subclass 462 Work and Holiday Visa is just an incredible opportunity to spend a year exploring, working, and living in one of the most beautiful countries on Earth. The pathway is clearly laid out right in front of you. So, I'll leave you with this. Your Australian adventure is waiting. Are your documents ready? Get organized, double-check that application, and take that first step toward the journey of a lifetime.